Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Youth Leadership in Action presentation. We are excited to share information about the Emerging Leaders Committee and the Maryland Youth Advisory Council. We just want to open with some considerations for the group. If you can please mute when you're not talking so that we can be mindful of other folks sharing. Also, that your camera is optional if you're comfortable sharing your video, or if you're in a place that you feel comfortable sharing your video, we would encourage you to do so. But if not, we are also encouraging folks to use the chat and the raised hand function if you have access to that, just to share information with us and your fellow participants. So we just want to do some introductions of our presenters, but also to get to know better who is in this space with us. If you could share your name, the school that you attend, or an organization that you represent, and if you can share what you are passionate about. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Christina Drusha Williams. I am the Chief of Community Initiatives with the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, and I am advisor and staff support to both the Emerging Leaders Committee and the Maryland Youth Advisory Council. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Darrell and James, to introduce themselves. Darrell?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Darrell Frazier. Baltimore City is where I call home, and I'm a part of the Emerging Leaders Committee of the State Advisory Group. Pleasure to be here. I chose the Emerging Leaders Committee because I am passionate about making impact around juvenile justice reform. So thank you all for joining us.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is James. I'm a high school senior at Wooten High School, Montgomery County. And I'm the chair of the Maryland Youth Advisory Council. I'm really excited to be here on this Youth Leadership in Action Day, to be presenting and to be going over some ways that how youth can be involved in our communities. That's something I'm really passionate about. So thank you so much. I'll hand it back to Ms. Christina.
Thank you, James. So briefly, just some of the goals for today is we want everyone to learn a little bit more about the Emerging Leaders Committee and the Maryland Youth Advisory Council. We also want to provide information that if you're interested in getting involved in the legislative and policymaking process, as both of these groups do, how you can do that, and also an opportunity to learn from your peers and other young leaders in your community what issues are important to them and how they support those issues in making change in their community. So that's just an overview of what we would like to accomplish in our time today. And I'm going to turn it over to Darrell to give you guys some more information about the Emerging Leaders Committee. Darrell?
Awesome. So this is us, the Emerging Leaders Committee. These are the two amazing individuals I get to do this phenomenal work with. And unfortunately, they couldn't be here today. But they are always in the room. They are always a strong advocate in any space that we're in as the emerging leaders. And so I'm grateful to work alongside both of these individuals and Christina. You have John Burton in the first picture, and then Kaya, who's in the second picture as well, and then myself. So I'm going to go over a brief overview of the Governor's Office, the State Advisory Group, and then the Emerging Leaders Committee, just so that you all can have a strong foundation of who we are, what we do, and why we even exist. So the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services focuses on a safer Maryland, right? So we have different categories that fall under that umbrella of, making sure that we have a safer Maryland, which is children and youth, improving the child well-being. We have law enforcement to utilize collaborative approaches and evidence-based practices for crime reduction, victim services, increasing safety, self-sufficiency, and awareness of resources. And then also, last but not least, through grants, utilizing data to identify problem areas by funding programs and measuring impact of those programs as well. The State Advisory Group on Juvenile Justice, which we like to call for short, the SAG, was established through the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, JJRA. The role of the State Advisory Group is to focus on developing a 3-year plan outlining state priorities, 2, awarding and monitoring funds to juvenile justice programs, 3, providing recommendations to the governor and legislature on juvenile justice related issues, and 4, engaging young people with lived experience and their families. The Emerging Leaders Committee, which is a subcommittee of the State Advisory Group, has our members who are under the age of 28, youth not appointed to the SAG, but may serve on the committee as well. 2, we empower and mobilize youth by cultivating relationships, spreading the word, and ensuring accessibility, which we like to say an opportunity to see at the table. And then 3, getting youth input for the SAG, including priorities, funding, technical assistance, communication, and all other SAG activities and priorities. The State Advisory Group priorities for 2021 to 2023 are focused on 4 primary areas. 1, programs for positive youth development. 2, diversion. 3, community-based alternatives to incarceration and institutionalization. And 4, community-based programs and services. Just to reiterate, we are doing a youth justice open mic discussion series where we are giving young people and allies the opportunity to come and share what are some of the challenges, what are some of the ideas, the various that they would like to talk about in the 4 different priority areas, and what are some solutions that we can do to address the need, and just educating one another on some of these topics of discussion as well too. We've already had our first 2 sessions, one that was in December, the other that was in February. And so we have one more that's coming up in March. I believe James just posted the link in the chat below. Feel free to click the link or use the QR code on the flyer to access the registration link and join us at the next one on March the 16th. And I'll pass it on over to my colleague, James. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Darrell, for sharing so many great things about the Emerging Leaders Committee. I hope that our audience could take some time to check out those awesome resources and maybe even join some of those opportunities. I will be talking a little bit about the Maryland Youth Advisory Council and what opportunities we possess in terms of uplifting the youth all over the state of Maryland, including Baltimore City. So who are we, the Maryland Youth Advisory Council? We are a diverse coalition of young advocates and leaders from across the state, and we address relevant issues to the youth by influencing legislation, conducting public awareness, and serving as a liaison between youth and policymakers. To be more specific, we are a group of 23 students who are high school or college students residing in the state of Maryland, and we love our job. So on this slide, we'll talk about some of our responsibilities, including informing the governor and the General Assembly of issues concerning youth, including offering testimony before legislative bodies, as well as examining issues of importance to youth, providing a platform for young people to advocate for issues impacting the youth. Now, a lot of these issues are current events, and we will be talking a little bit about these in the next couple of slides. But before we dive into that, let's talk about who we are a little bit more specifically. Our council members are appointed through 3 governing bodies, first from the governor, second from the General Assembly, and third from student government. We aim to be a diverse group of leaders who are able to represent many different viewpoints on many different issues affecting the youth. And this is the reason why we're able to select from these groups of and organizations. Talking a little bit about legislative topic areas that we discuss and we are able to advocate for. These are a list of issues that we have found to be some of our priorities over the past couple of years. You can see many very pertinent issues on your screen here today, including issues that affect us, the youth of Maryland, on a daily basis, including education, safe learning environment, and many, many more. Now, with our current legislative priority for the 2021 to 2022 year, we're looking at an overall theme of youth justice. We have 4 main categories that we want to share with you today, with the first being discrimination, where we talk about racial and ethnic discrimination, discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community, and as well as individuals with disabilities. We discuss ways that we can influence legislation that is able to limit the discrimination and be able to promote the inclusivity of all people within Maryland's youth. The next topic area is on the environment, including mitigating the impacts of climate change and promoting environmental education across the board all over the state of Maryland. The third is promoting educational equity, including promoting the implementation of the Kirwan Commissions, which are also known as the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, improving access to higher education by allowing financial supports to be accessed by students in need, as well as including an inclusive health education for education across the board. And finally, something that really relates to what Darrell has mentioned already, being able to promote juvenile justice reform across the board. We have also been able to promote reforms to school discipline policies, as well as the implementation of juvenile justice reform council recommendations. Apart from these priorities, we do have 2 more, being the main priorities for our platform this year. First of which being mental health and well-being. This is split into 2 main points that we've been continuously trying to work on, and including advocating for and promoting. First of which being mitigating the impacts of COVID. The pandemic has definitely affected all of us, and the youth have specifically been under the pressure of education and all of these other responsibilities around the house and in the community, and being able to prioritize mental health is certainly an important thing. And second, being able to increase access to youth-specific resources and services has also been on the radar and something we have been promoting throughout this year. And second, our priority has also been to promote the Student Member of Board of Education, or also known as SMOB, voting rights by establishing and expanding voting rights across all boards of education within each county or jurisdiction in the state of Maryland. The student voice is super important, and it should be the same within all premises of educational entities, being public school systems or otherwise. And that's why we're promoting that. All right, so we're going to move on to our next section. And now we want to talk about ways where you can take action in your community on issues of importance to you.
So how can you take action? What fuels your passion? What gives you that spark, that desire to really want to impact change and to really, create even additional opportunities for yourself and other young people in your community? I think identifying your passion is one of the most difficult parts of getting involved. Can be prioritizing those issues that are most important to you. But I believe that it's so essential for us to be able to identify what it is that we want to create an impact on. And it could be numerous, it could be more than one, but I think limiting it down to those core issue areas that you would truly like to create an overall impact is so critical and important.
Absolutely, Darrell. Now, this next point I want to bring up is starting small and starting local. So as Darrell mentioned, you could have many passions, but if you focus on one and is able to be the best advocate for just that one issue, you're going to be making a great impact on the community around you. Same thing with starting local. You're not going to be able to solve climate change in one day or be able to solve global hunger in one day. But if you're able to start small and start with simple ways of impacting policy with local developments or working with some of your friends to make a small impact in somebody else's life, you're going to go a long way. Back to you, Darrell.
Absolutely. As James stated, you cannot solve a lot of these major issues in one day, and you can't solve them alone. It's going to take a community. So I think identifying your tribe, identifying your support system, those like-minded individuals who are passionate about those issues as well can help you with identifying solutions to those problems or those issues that you're looking to address, and also help you with identifying opportunities, making connections with those organizations, learning more about those issues that are affecting your local community and meeting more like-minded individuals who share your passion. I think is very ideal.
All right, absolutely. And after you're able to kind of build that community, make new connections with organizations, and be able to come up with a group of people who are able to support your cause, the other thing you have to do is stay informed. You need to keep yourself up to date on issues that are really, really important to you, follow up on policies that interest you, and know that the solution may not be very simple. But being well read and being very open to new ideas will always be the right way to look for new solutions to complex societal issues.
And as James stated earlier, I believe that voting is an additional way for young people to get involved and take action. Even if you're not at the age of voting for 18 years old, there are many ways for you to get involved to impact voters' rights, to impact voter turnout, even just bringing awareness to certain issues and opportunities for folks in your community to vote, or when individuals in your community are able to have the opportunity to vote and they're at their voting age, they're already well aware of issues that are occurring or either important in their community that they are more than eager to get out and vote on behalf of those elections. And let's not forget, the presidential election isn't the only election that happens every 4 years. We also have local elections that are very important and state elections as well. And I
Absolutely,
will
Durham.
pass it on to James.
Thank you so much. And what I've actually done is pasted some resources in the chat for you to check out, talking about this last specific point of being involved, voting, and finding your representatives to make a real difference in your community. All right, now let's put the spotlight on some of our participants. We would like all of you to share one action you can kind of take after the session of learning from young people and the ways that we do things to be able to either learn more about an issue, take action on your passion, or make change in your community. So if you're willing to and able to, please share with us some issue that you're very passionate about, maybe something that Darrell or I have already mentioned, maybe something that you are very passionate about that we don't know about, and how you're going to take some actions to make a real difference in your community. And as we've kind of mentioned, you really can make a true impact on those around you, no matter how small it may be. So feel free to share if you have anything that you're very passionate about.
And for our presenters, feel free to put stuff in the chat, or if you are open to it, you can unmute and share and tell us what you are passionate about and what's an action that you can take moving forward to act on that passion.
All right, thank you, Jen, for sharing on the issue of water affordability in Baltimore. And just to mention that you would like to research opportunities for seats on local water boards. That's a great way to start making change in Baltimore, especially for water affordability, because that is one of the great issues that will become more and more important as we talk about the sustainability and the resources that we have access to. Thank you so much for sharing.
Darrell and James, as we're waiting for folks to continue to share, is there anything that you would like to share as in addition to the work that you do with the Maryland Youth Advisory Council and the Emerging Leaders Committee, something that you're passionate about and something that you can take action on?
Absolutely. So Jen also just added an additional comment. She stated, is there a pipeline that exists for young people to prepare to run for local office? That's such a great question. And I'm so happy that you asked that, Jen, because I am passionate. I would just want to state that I am really, really passionate with getting young people more involved in the public policy space, in the advocacy space, and also just being more engaged and informed about local office, right? What does some of these roles do? We hear all the time about city council president, the mayor, etc. But what actually does some of these other roles do? And I know that we have a youth commission locally in Baltimore City. that is very engaged in the day-to-day process in politics and advocating on behalf of youth issues here in Baltimore City. So I know that's one way that young people can really prepare to learn more about politics, the local politics actually, also the state politics, and really be able to be equipped with the skills and resources that they'll need in order to later on run for office. We also have other opportunities such as the Mayoral Fellowship, which is for some of our older young people that ranges from the age of 18 to 25, I believe, or 18 to 26, but they can also work for local offices in the city of Baltimore, and even opportunities like that James is a part of, the Maryland Youth, the MIAC, the Maryland Youth Commission. I think it's a great opportunity for them to be able to work with those government officials and learn more about politics on the state level. So those are just like a few ways that young people can get more involved. I think that there are definitely some additional opportunities with other local organizations, such as CLEAR. CLEAR does like a policy advocacy training and really mobilizes young people. City Councilman Eric Costello actually has a program that really that works with high school youth and engages them and teaches them about local government and politics. But I believe it's only in his district. I would have to double check on that. I think you had to live in his district in order to be able to participate in that program. So I would have to confirm on that, but there are additional opportunities as well, whether it's for our younger youth in middle school, high school, and even some of our younger adults between the ages of 18 and 25 as well. And I'm more than happy to provide you with additional information after this. I'll place my email in the chat. This is one of my favorite things to do, something I'm passionate about, is advocating on behalf of youth and really just, getting more involved with them, whether it's through mentorship or connecting them to resources. And now I'll kick it over to James. James, you want to share anything?
I think that Darrell, I think that you summed that up so well. I don't know how to add more to that, but Darrell has mentioned some great opportunities, and I would just want to encourage all of our audience members here that if you want to get involved, taking one small step is better than no step at all. And really, making a small difference is all that it takes to get you started on this advocacy journey. So don't be afraid and be bold and be able to make a difference in someone else's life. I think that I was actually going to talk about this idea of advocacy and this idea of leadership as well. So I think Darrell, you stole the words right out of my mouth, but that's not a bad thing. It's a good problem to have. So that's all that I have to share for just this slide. I'll hand it back to either Darrell or Miss Christina, whoever wants to lead the rest of the presentation.
Well, I just also wanted to share some other considerations that are statewide, but inclusive of Baltimore City. Well, it's not specific for like a local elected office, but through the Maryland General Assembly, they also have the PAGE program. So it's an opportunity for, I believe, high school seniors that might be inclusive of juniors as well, to serve as legislative pages during the Maryland General Assembly. So it's an opportunity for those young people to be in Annapolis during the legislative session. They are serving as aides to support the work of the committees and the legislators. It's a real opportunity for young people to see the policymaking process in action and kind of get those behind the scenes, that behind the scenes viewpoint and those opportunities to interact with our legislators and to be in Annapolis, rubbing shoulders with all of the folks that are working in Annapolis during the legislative session. So there is more information on the Maryland PAGE program. There's stipends and kind of housing supports that are provided for young people who participate in that program. But again, it's another opportunity to see the legislative process in action. And similarly to what Darrell shared about Councilman Costello, there are other legislators that have different kind of internship opportunities or different programs to learn more about the legislative process and public office. So I think really encouraging young people to know who their representatives are at all levels, whether it's the city, county, state, or federal level, and kind of create those opportunities to get to know their legislators and reach out if they have questions. I think to that point, Jen, with your question is, I'm not aware of a formal pipeline or process or program for young people to get into office. So I think starting that conversation in these spaces, but also with elected officials to get that, to get that support for young people to have greater access to that information and resources. So always, if you have questions, you should feel empowered to reach out to your local officials. You are their constituents. It's their job to hear from you. And so that's part of your also civic responsibility, is to reach out to your elected leaders to share your thoughts and ideas and concerns.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina, for sharing those additional opportunities. As I stated earlier, I want to invite you all to join us at our next Youth Justice Open Mic Series. Is on the third Wednesday of this month, which is March 16th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. James has also posted it in the chat for you all to click, and then Christina also have it right here. Thank you so much, Christina. Our next session will be focused on alternatives to incarceration. This is a great opportunity for youth and the allies to be able to come and be in a space where we can have a robust discussion on these different topic areas and really be able to collaborate, right? Very informal conversation, great opportunity for additional young people to kind of learn more about the Emerging Leaders Committee, how they can really get involved in advocacy, because we are actively recruiting, and you don't have to be a member or get appointed if you don't want to. You are also more than welcome to join our meetings as well. And the next one is April the 20th. So hopefully I get to see you all there. You can share the flyer out. And thank you so much for joining us. I'll throw it back over to Christina.
All right, and another shameless plug for us, for the Maryland Youth Advisory Council. Our applications are open until, I believe, June 30th. Is that right, Ms. Christina? And if you'd like to join an opportunity to be up close with the process of policymaking, advocacy, youth leadership, all of those things, this is a great opportunity to be able to apply for and see if you're able to join us for the next council year and be able to make a big difference. There's also the ELC member interest form. Ms. Christina, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So like Darrell said, in addition to the appointed state advisory group members who kind of chair and support the Emerging Leaders Committee, that committee is also open to members of the public who aren't appointed through the state advisory group. And I think the committee is trying to do a lot of work of recruiting young people and adult allies to help with the membership and do the work and raise awareness about this group. And it, again, is an opportunity to be a part of the policymaking process and also being a part of the funding process. So we would love to have folks join the Emerging Leaders Committee. If you are interested, we have a link to the form. So if you or any other young people that you know or work with might be interested, we would be happy for you to join us. Also, for the Maryland Youth Advisory Council, in addition to the application, all of the meetings are open to the public. So if you go to the council's webpage, you can see the meeting schedule. The council meets one Saturday a month from September through May, and the meetings are open to the public. So if you're interested in joining the council with that meeting, there's information on how to contact me so that you can get access to the meeting login. And currently both groups are meeting virtually. So they're, can reduce some of the travel considerations that some folks might have, but we would love for folks to join us in both of these groups and spaces.
And as a kind of like a reminder, our next meeting will be this Saturday, I believe the 5th, from 1 to 4 p.m. So feel free to join us then if you'd like.
And so just to finish up, thank you again so much for joining us. We would love for you to continue to stay connected to us. Even if you aren't interested in serving or applying as a member, we would love for you to learn more information by going to our two web pages. Also, if you are on social media for the Maryland Youth Advisory Council, please follow us on Instagram. And if for some of our older folks, follow us on Facebook. You can also follow us using the hashtag MD Youth Advisory. Also, if you're interested in learning more about not only the work of the State Advisory Group, but also the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth and Victim Services, feel free to follow the office at that address, and then also using the hashtag A Safer Maryland. So we would love for you to continue to stay in touch with us. And we do recognize that we have a few minutes, so we did also want to open it up in case there were any other questions that folks might have had, either about both of the groups that are here today, or just other information about taking action that you had. We would love to kind of support you and answer questions.
So hi, by the way, and this is amazing. My one question is, what kind of outreach happens like to different schools? I'm assuming, and if this sort of was at the beginning, I apologize, I was a few minutes late from the last session. Is there like a specific kind of outreach made to schools at this, I'm assuming that the outreach is through schools, or is this like a nomination kind of a thing? Like how is the marketing, quote unquote, handled to gather to sort of glean new folks for the groups, the councils?
Yeah, so I think we try as much as we can to outreach as much as possible. I mean, there's things that are sent, at least for both these groups, since they are statewide. For the emerging leaders, it's working with the Department of Juvenile Services and the grantees and the organizations that are working with young people. For the Maryland Youth Advisory Council, we try to share it with all of our nonprofit and community-based organizations, also with schools, but a lot of times they're sent at the county level. So it likely goes to the superintendent's office with the hope that it trickles down and shares. Same thing with representatives from the General Assembly. We share that information with the president of the president of the Senate and the speaker, with the president in the speaker's office, and to share that information down. But I think in my experience in the 11 years that I've been with the Maryland Youth Advisory Council, it's been word of mouth. It's been current council members sharing with their friends. They're that trusted voice of saying, this is something that I did, or I know my friend did it and had a really great experience, and want to share that opportunity. I think over the years of the council, there have been certain schools or certain teachers, whether it's a government teacher or a civics teacher, that has become aware of this program, and they do a really good job of sharing it with individual schools. But we know that isn't necessarily the same experience across every school and every school district in Maryland. So I think letting young people know that these opportunities exist are an ongoing challenge. And I also want to open it up to James and Darrell, just from your experiences with interacting with these groups. How did you hear about it, and what do you think would be helpful to help more young people know about these opportunities?
Sure thing. I'll talk a little bit about MIAC. I actually heard about MIAC through Montgomery County's Regional Student Government Association. So as Ms. Christina mentioned, that was trickled down from Maryland Association of Student Councils, sharing with Montgomery County Regional, sharing with their departments. And then I was one of their executive board members back in the day. And so that's how I heard of it. I know that we've been trying to do a good job of sharing with all the individual high schools within my county and the counties around us. And I know that the outgoing chair from last year, Ian Hurd, has also done a great job of sharing his advocacy and the opportunities, including MIAC, with some of his connections. So definitely word of mouth, but I know that our committees and our members are definitely trying to work on spreading the word a little bit further this time with every passing year. So most definitely try to share it with as many people as possible.
And for myself, I learned about the SAG in general, and then learned about the Emerging Leaders Committee through through Jenny Egan, who is the chief of staff for the Office of Public Defenders. I was a mayoral fellow at the time, and mayoral fellows, we work on. I worked at the mayor's office of performance and innovation. So one of the mayor's target issues that he wanted us to focus on was youth justice. And so we had an interview/meeting with Jenny Egan, and she seen my passion for youth justice and seen that I really wanted to make an impact. And she informed me that the state SAG was actually actively recruiting for young people who were impacted, or if we had a family member that was impacted. And when I learned about the opportunity, I immediately applied. And I think one of the best ways to really try to get more engagement amongst some of the younger people to be a part of the state SAG and the Emerging Leaders Committee, it's just the engagement. I know when I came at the time where some of the members serving was transitioning out. And so I think one of my priorities while serving right now is to kind of do more youth engagement such as these, such as today, being a part of this amazing event, and also engaging allies, like leaders of other organizations, leaders in the school system that also work with young people across the state, and really getting folks to become more interested and want to be a part. So.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody. This was great.
So Jen, thank you so much for joining us. So we are mindful of time, that we have come to the end of our session, but thank you so much for joining us and for learning more about the Maryland Youth Advisory Council and the emerging leaders. We really hope that you'll follow up on some of the resources that we shared, and that this is our first of many future interactions. So thank you all so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks so much.